My name is Karen Vilandry, environmental activist, also a member of Hands Across the River Coalition. Totally against disposing PCBs 50 to 200 parts per million in a CAD cell in our harbor. This particular report here, Jacobs Engineering, talks about a study that was done on emissions, or I should say volatilization of the contaminants during the time of dredging, bring the material up over the shoreline, also putting it on an open top barge, and then just taking it over to the CAD cell to drop. All the while, this material, PCBs, in addition to heavy metals and other contaminants, volatilizing. This morning I received a copy of a letter from Wilma Subra, who is an environmental scientist. And she was part of the industry. She's been to this site, and she says this particular report is unacceptable because it doesn't take into consideration already the PCB exposure that this population in this area has had. In addition, it doesn't address any other contamination other than specifically the PCBs. Nothing here about dioxins, nothing here about any type of heavy metals. Mark, again, I'm going to make reference to the letter I received from Wilma Subra this morning, who says, without reading everything, of course, the last paragraph, the flawed modeling indicated, and again, I'm referring to the Jacobs Engineering report entitled Final Evaluation of the Impact of Dredging and Disaster Disposal on Air Quality. She says, and I quote, the flawed modeling indicated that CAD disposal will have an impact on air quality. However, the inadequacies of the process failed to determine the overall impacts on air quality and exposure of a population with a history of long-term exposure. Such impacts, in addition to historical exposure, is unacceptable. You know, and I want to say this too. A lot of you guys here are from the commercial fishing industry. That's where I come from. That's my close family. All right? I support our fishing industry, and I support and advocate for clean air for all of us to breathe. Because if we don't have it, none of us can do anything. And it's important to note too, for those of you who don't understand why I'm on a fit about this, PCBs bio-accumulate. What that simply means is you breathe in a small amount, even though it's below whatever the levels are that the EPA says is okay. That little bit, each and every day, you breathe it in. It builds up, it builds up, it builds up, it builds up in your body. Okay? Unless you have a damn good doctor that tests blood serum PCBs, you don't know this. But then all of a sudden you or a family member comes down with cancer. You go to the doctor treats the symptoms, doesn't go after the why, what happened. And all of you know of somebody in your family that has cancer and has died of cancer. Okay? And we have that brand new cancer facility that just opened up in Fairhaven. We have another one on Fons Corner Road. This is the reality. So you breathe that little bit in each and every day. Stuff happens. And this report was only done on PCBs. It wasn't done on dioxin, which is far worse. It wasn't done on any other contamination. And already this report is flawed. And I want to mention this too. The Government Accountability Office a couple of years ago declared that the EPA was not protective enough of human health. Just October of this past year, they declared that the environmental justice piece, the EPA was not up to snuff on. So it didn't matter all the people in low income and disabled and everything else in this area. And then, I affect a laugh, but in a sad way. We have a large disabled population, which could be because of the neurological disorders these kids are born with, because these kids are pre-polluted as it is, because their mothers and fathers were exposed to contamination.
And there's research that supports that.
So we got that issue to deal with, and that's the reality of this area. That's why, it doesn't, it really doesn't matter about how this CAD cell is built. What's put in the bottom? What's put on the sides? Is it lined? Is it not lined? What do you put on top? Where is it going to be located? Because you know what the bottom line is? We don't want PCBs stored in this river. Period. They just took down Aerovox. It was just completed, last month. They took the PCBs out of here. They took all the contamination out of here. Anything that's being hydraulically dredged right now from the Superfund site at the Upper Harbor, that stuff is being piped underwater, toxic sediment, to the dewatering desanding facility, and then that sediment is shipped out very safely. Okay, it's done underwater. So what's happening here with the air? You don't want this stuff in the air, because even though you guys, you might be out fishing, you still have to do your work here. You still have your families here. I know a lot of fishermen, they might live in Maine, they might live down the Cape, live here, there, and everywhere. But this is your port. This is your port. And you want the air as clean as the water. Please keep that in mind.